40% of kids saying they hate school. We have to find a way in education to bring those kids to school. We got to figure out a way to make them enjoy it, at least just for a little bit.
What we're trying to do is teach kids how to learn.
Some kids have never had success in school. You put them in front of a video game, they find success. Now I have a voice. Now people are listening to me.
I think people think we're teaching video games.
Right.
And that is absolutely not what we're doing.
You can bring this into a building with your teachers, and it's innovative to where the students are going to be a part of something that is just bigger than them.
Through gaming concepts, I really feel like I have even a stronger connection with students than I've had in the past 10 years of teaching.
Welcome to the Gaming Concepts Podcast. I'm Dr. Kristen Craft. Joining me today are my partners in crime, Dr. Mike Russell and Mr. Trevor Goertzen. How are you gentlemen today?
I am fantastic. Thank you.
Well, you look fantastic.
Friday. It's Friday. Thanks.
It's Friday.
It is Friday. I'm very excited about that. So,
and I see you have stormtroopers in your background. So are you feeling like a stormtrooper as you go into the weekend?
I'm prepping for Disney World. I'm going on vacation next week and we are going to Disney World. So I am ready to go. I've got my background ready and I'm already getting in the mode to go. So I'm already watching the wait times on the rides. That's how you do it.
Oh my goodness. So, how many times have you been? What will this trip be for you?
Oh man. Probably 8 or 9, somewhere in there. I never went to Disney until I was 30 years old.
Wow.
And now you can't stop going.
And now it's like I have to go like all the time.
You just think it's the greatest
This
thing
is
ever.
like my third time going in 18 months. So,
wow. I'm super impressed.
Yeah.
I haven't been since I was 12, so maybe it's time to go back, Mike.
Well, Trevor would like to go with you. So if you could just pack them up.
Let's go.
I love to take people who haven't been in a long time or have never been. That's my favorite thing. I love to see their faces. It's the best part. So.
Oh, I think awesome. That's great.
Trevor, so what's your favorite ride? What's your favorite ride there?
Oh, definitely Rise of the Resistance.
Right.
That's where this picture came from.
Star Trek. Right. That's your Star Trek stuff.
That's the Star Trek ride. Yes, Trevor.
Okay. That's good.
You got it. Good job.
Trevor, how are you today?
I'm good, man. Like it's a Friday. I love getting to come into the office here. I'm lucky that I live close enough to the headquarters of Generation Esports. So I get to come into the office today and be with the great people here and just kind of be a part of this community. And I love it. I love it. Talked to a couple different people who want to bring Generation Esports into their schools. And so got to talk to a school in Iowa and a school in New York City today about bringing esports and esports curriculum. And the crazy thing is they're way more interested in the curriculum. Like they really want to help teach their kids all things about career opportunities with esports. So they already are playing, but they say, hey, we need to do more. We need to be able to teach our kids the skills associated with esports. I want to be able to show them. One guy said specifically, he goes, I want persistence training. He goes, I really believe you can teach persistence through esports. I'm like, yes, you can. Let me help you, show you how to do this. And so we went through the middle school curriculum together and he's like, this is amazing. Like, why are people not doing this more and realizing what esports can teach kids specifically? So it was so cool and so encouraging. And Kristen, I know you have that opportunity as well, that when we talk to schools that are using gaming concepts, and when we show them, it's like they have this epiphany moment of, oh my goodness, how cool is this? What awesome things are we doing for kids with esports? So I've had a good morning so far. Looking forward to kind of where this conversation goes today.
I love it. Yeah, we had even Trevor and I had an impromptu thing this week where we got to talk to some people up in Johnson County, Kansas, and they happened to be having a meeting around something called the Kansas Communities that Care Survey, and they were talking about mental health and what to do and to help students in the schools. And we just happened to be talking about what we were there for, and they're like, well, would you talk to us about it? So we shared our findings for our mental health study and how they're connected into our gaming concepts courses. And it's amazing to me. I had a friend who was saying things like, sorry, my dog wanted to chew on something. So, but I had a friend, right? I had a friend who was like, why aren't schools just jumping on this? Like, it just seems to make so much sense. And I've really kind of been thinking a lot about that question is, what is, I think the word curriculum, I think gets people hung up. One, they think it's terribly pricey, I think. Two, they think, well, I don't have a teacher or we don't have that set up in our schedule yet. And, I think when they actually hear from us that you can use these lessons in a multitude of ways, whether you're doing it with a club or you have a class you're already teaching and you just need to plug some lessons in, it's really no different than a teachers pay teachers situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's just interesting to me, like it's kind of like, no, don't talk about curriculum, but it goes so hand in hand with what everybody's trying to do to really give some structure to esports and give it some normalization in schools. So anyway,
I'm with you, Kristen. Like, that's exactly the conversation with the guy this morning in Iowa was. He's like, I don't know if I'm certified to teach it. And I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be a full class.
Yeah.
Use it as a supplement to your CT class you're currently teaching.
Yeah.
Here's the lessons you can use. And once you see game plan and you see the learning management system, you're like, oh, well, yeah, there's 1,000 ways I can use this now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perseverance and persistence are something I would talk about every presentation, because that's something you can definitely learn from gaming without any repercussion really, other than time spent, and that's, you can't learn perseverance without failure. And we don't offer a lot of opportunity to fail in school without any repercussion other than,
right.
I mean, it's going to affect your grade, it's going to affect your class rank, whatever. And
and failing doesn't really motivate kids or make them persevere. So we have the golden ticket, I feel like. So, well, speaking of golden tickets, I feel like I have a great guest to share with you today. So I'm going to start out with some clues. So this person in particular was named after a bull rider.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Like PBR bull rider?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm super excited now.
Yeah.
Super excited.
And he just showed up, but here's the other clues about him. He works on a military installation.
Ooh.
And he is the TCEA 2022 Instructional Tech Specialist of the Year.
Wow. Awesome. That is amazing.
I'm still hung up on the bull rider part. That's what I'm more interested in.
I don't know any bull. I couldn't name one bull rider. So
my goodness, I could name you multiple. I hate to say that.
What is 11 seconds? Who's that bull rider?
11 seconds.
9 seconds. What was it?
8 seconds.
That was Lane Frost.
Lane Frost. See, I do know of Lane Frost. Okay.
All right.
So my guest is, and I'm going to admit him right now. So let's see.
Bring him on.
Comes on in.
Bring him out.
Wacey Tobler.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Y'all. How are y'all?
Hi, good. Hi, Wacey. I just used your clues this morning, and I think they're very excited about the bull rider that you were named after. So talk about that really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So that actually comes up a lot. So my dad was a bull rider in the late 60s, early 70s. And in that circle, it's kind of a tradition to name your kid after a famous bull rider. We follow sports teams and stuff like that. And obviously they did that back in the 70s. I'm not trying to say that they're archaic, but he was just a country boy. And so I'm named after Wacey Cathy, which was the championship bull rider of 1986 for the PRCA.
Wow.
Whopping $30,000 in his career, which probably all went to medical bills. But that's the sport. So that's where that comes from. So yeah.
Well, YouTube now checking out Wacey Cathy. So
he's got some pretty
PBR. I love me some PBR. I watch it. I watch it probably more often than I should even right now. So
that's so fun. Well, Wacey, why don't you introduce yourself to both Trevor and Mike, since they haven't met you, as well as all of our listeners on our Gaming Concepts podcast. We're just really excited to have you today.
I'm very honored to be here. Yeah, I'm so thankful for you guys bringing me on. So my name is Wacey Tobler. I am the secondary digital learning coach at the fantastic Fort Sam Houston ISD here in San Antonio, Texas. I serve our secondary campus, which is an integrated campus. We have a middle school and high school that share facilities, and then we have one elementary school here at Fort Sam. And the cool thing about Fort Sam is that we were actually on the military installation. And so about 88% of our students are military dependents, and our district boundaries are coterminous with the installation. So you either have to be on post or as an NRT, which is a non-resident transfer, in order to come on and join our school. So we're still publicly funded, just like a normal independent school district. But yeah, our community is all military. So that infuses our culture and definitely carries over into our esports program. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
I love it. So Wacey and I met in a really interesting way. So last January, was it? We were in, where were we? Dallas? Yeah.
It was Dallas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were at the TCEA conference. This is the one where, I just sat at the bar and bought drinks for people. Because I'm really fun like that. And anyway, I was sitting talking to some people at lunch, and they were like, "You have to meet our tech director." And I was like, "Well, who is your tech director?" And they're like, "Wacey. She's got to meet Wacey, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And I wasn't putting anything together yet. And so they sent a picture of me to Wacey. They're like, "You have to meet Kristen." He's like, "Oh, I know her. We were going to connect. We're on Twitter together." Power of Twitter, people.
Yes.
And so we'd already been talking back and forth. So then I'm standing there at a little esports arena area, and I'm talking, and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" I didn't realize it was Wacey. He's like, "I'm Wacey." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So now we actually really know each other. And he's just been so fun to follow his whole journey. And, he uses High School Esports League for, their esports stuff. Hasn't gotten into the gaming concepts yet, right?
Not yet.
Correct.
Not yet.
Yeah, okay.
We're getting there.
But what I love so much about Wacey is just how even his whole just district, and they're just so innovative, and he is so bought into this whole esports thing. And I love that he has a unique situation with the military. So I thought he'd be a really fun guest for us today. So I'm going to let you guys fire some questions away at Wacey. You good with that, Wacey?
Sounds good. No, that's a heck of an introduction. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I would love to know, kind of as a tech director, you're in a unique position, and that's I imagine maybe you could tell us a little more about your role. But I know as a former principal, tech directors kind of have an overarching role in that they foresee or they oversee a lot of different things within their school district. With the technology integration, what are some of the things that you've kind of run into in bringing esports into schools that would help other districts learn how to, and kind of the hurdles they had to overcome to bring gaming into their schools? So I don't know if you can kind of speak to that in kind of a broad scope and help other tech directors feel more comfortable bringing esports into their schools from your perspective and your expertise.
Well, I gotta provide one slight little correction. I am not the tech director here at Fort Sam.
Okay.
That would have been Dr. Rios. But as the digital learning coach, that's
okay.
I'm
You're
kind
still
of the
integrated
assistant,
all
the junior
okay.
tech director. So yes, but yes, question still certainly applies.
Still
applies. I think with the getting other people involved in esports, it really affects the perception when it is student led. And so when we started our program, we were blessed to tie our program to a STEM grant that we received from the Department of Defense Education Activity Fund. So DODEA is kind of the overseer of that grant. And we were the first, as far as I know, the first in the country to tie their STEM grant that they give out to an esports program. And so that funding kind of accelerated our ability to get the equipment, which then rooted the program in the reality that this is actually happening. And so it really took us from being just a video game enthusiast club to an actual legitimate bona fide esports program. And then I just started turning over everything to the students. And so as the students started to realize, like, hey, this is happening, this is something that we want to maintain and to have persist, they started to help me kind of define all the roles and responsibilities. And so, tech directors, CTOs, superintendents, everybody out there that's listening that has, you're the thought leader of your district, the student-led piece and the connections to industry is really where the rubber meets the road for the students. And once they start to see that in space, it becomes tangible for them. Obviously the competition piece is important. We want the kids to compete, and that's very important to them. But after a while, I think the kids start to find their place. And as an industry, that's what we want, right? That's the primary goal of anything in education is, going to college is important. Yes, going to trade school is important. But really, just from my perspective, I just want the kids to make a living wage in an area, in a field that they love doing. And so if that's broadcasting, then so be it. If it's social media management, so be it. If it's graphic design, so be it. If it's professional esports, wow, that's kind of the icing on the cake. And so once we start to turn it over and you see the excitement and the students doing all that leadership piece, I think that's where it becomes a lot more real for the districts. And, you know, from my perspective too, it's a lot harder for a district leader to tell a kid directly to their face no than it is to tell one of us as an employee no, right? And so I know there's all different kinds of reasons why they would give that no, but you know, when you have a kid that presents to a principal and they say, I want to start an esports program, which is exactly what our club president did, with no help from me or any of the district people, the principal was like, wow, man, that was amazing. So the answer is yes. How can we do it? So I think the student-led piece is really the heart of all of that big puzzle.
So cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we always advise is people take the kids with them when they do their presentation, because that always helps. So I have two really important questions. One is just kind of a side note, but so down in Houston, down in San Antonio, is it Houston Texans or Dallas Cowboys? I'm always curious.
Very important.
This is an important thing. I need to know.
I think it's where you source from, right? So okay. If you are from Austin, the Austin area, it was always the Cowboys or the Longhorns, because there's never going to be a pro football team in Austin as long as the Longhorns exist. And so if you're from the Austin kind of that part of Central Texas, I think it's the Cowboys. If you're coming from, you know, the east side of Texas, I think it's going to be the Texans. But the bigger one is the Astros, because the Astros are rocking it right now. And we've had two really good games, and I'm very excited about that. I feel like our chances are really strong this year of maybe getting back to the big show. So you
have some options, is what you're saying. Like you can just go which other one's doing better. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. And
I like that. I like that idea. So
yeah.
And now that the Royals are down, it kind of helps allow the Astros to keep their momentum. So we'll go with that.
Sure. The other question is that I have for you is kind of about your student population. Do you find is it pretty transient with all people get moved around, or do they stay there pretty consistently? I mean, do you have kids go all the way, you know, from freshman to senior, or do you have them, you know, transition in quite a bit, quite often? I mean, I would assume that's an answer is a yes, but explain to me, like, how do you do that with your classes, and how do you make the kids kind of pick up where they left off from where they were at previously and things like that?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, so I think the military mobility has been a little bit higher than it has in the past. I do have a greater number of kids that tend to stay for multiple years. So part of Fort Sam is they have the Brooke Army Medical Center here. And so we get a large influx of medical doctors, and we have the Wounded Warrior unit, the burn unit, that kind of thing. And so I feel like that provides them with a little bit more stability. But prior to COVID, it was, you know, year or two here and out. And then we've had a couple of really, really strong actual competitors that have since moved. We had a kid on our Rocket League team that he was excellent. And he had really kind of blended in with the team very well. And they started to really jive, and they were getting some momentum. And then they got relocated to Oklahoma last year. And so it's funny though, because the kids, you know, the technology piece makes it a lot easier for them to stay connected, you know, and I grew up in the Austin area, and so it wasn't really as heavily influenced with the military. And so I have friends that, you know, I made and keep and maintain. But with these kids, you know, they make such a connection, and that community piece with them being in the military as dependents really creates that strong bond. And, you know, at the start of the year when we moved into our new lab, which I can show you guys here in a minute, they actually one of the Rocket League team captain ended up getting the kid on FaceTime that had moved, and it was like, hey Luke, what's going on? And he was like, man, I really wish I could be there right now. And he's like, now you move into the space, right? So we were shoved into the corner of our tech building when he was here, and he's like, man, I move and then you get the cool spot. So it's cool to see that. And I'm happy that we have such a beautiful technology where everybody's baseline now, right? Like prior to COVID, everybody's like, what is Zoom? I've never done a Google Meet before. And now it's just second nature for us to hop on a call with each other. So the kids really take that and run with it too. So
Oh, I love that. I love that. So when you talk about, one of the things we actually have the military gaming league too, one of the tournaments. And so can you talk about, because I don't think sometimes people realize this, but military really does love gamers. And, when you talk about a connection to an industry, what are some of the connections that maybe you've made with your esports kiddos and the military and the crossover there? I think people would like to hear that.
Sure. So one of the biggest ones is just with the community itself. We have some events, and now we're in the local scene with an organization called the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology. They have provided a space for us to have, like face-to-face tournaments. We do it second Saturday of every month. And so now we have this amazing central location for everybody. And it's actually right outside Lackland Air Force Base. And so one of the biggest kind of blended connections that we had is our season opener for them was the second Saturday in September, and they have this gaming center and it's open to the public. Well, the Air Force had come in and booked that morning for them. And so they're in their 60 PC, amazing tech center. And so there's Air Force people coming in and out. And then so they start seeing us and they're like, wait a minute, you guys are from Cole. Is that Cole as in like Robert G. Cole on Fort Sam? And so now we're kind of starting to make these connections. And so they're able to kind of see it in action. And then we just made a connection with Youth Services, which is kind of a stone's throw from our high school building. And they source from kind of all over the area, even outside and off of the military installation. But, they are the after school program. And so now we've got these kids that, don't have that exposure, or maybe they see it as being more competitive based, and maybe they don't have time for it because they have their after school. And so now we're going to be able to partner with Youth Services and help them kind of build out their program with a little bit more of a depth and breadth for the kids that, you're maybe even sourced from like upper elementary school and middle school, which is that's been kind of a gap for us right now because our program really is more on the high school side. So now that we have a space, now that we have these different tournaments, we're being more visible. And so I'm hoping that we can even maybe connect with a VFW or something like that and start doing some stuff outside and around in the community as well.
That's awesome.
I love that.
Do you find that kind of staying within that military community is kind of one of your primary goals and purposes right now, just because of the connections you have? That is the space to stay within.
Absolutely. I think the especially with them having military teams now, I think it's already saturated enough there, and there's just so much excitement around that because it's new, it's innovative, and so we definitely want to keep that going. And especially with about 90% of our kids are from military. And it's funny you asked that question too, because the elementary had their little fall fest yesterday, which is their community event for Halloween and all that. And one of the dads came up to me and we were talking through that, and he's like, I really want my daughter to join. And she's standing there and she's kind of rolling her eyes and stuff like that, and she's like, I don't want to join esports. And he turns to her and he says, this isn't for you, this is for me. I want to join esports, right? Because I wanted this when I was in high school. And so I was just cracking up about that. So she's like, whatever, Dad, go do your thing. I was like, you can come out anytime you want, man. You don't have to force your kid to be in our club.
And do you find that military families are maybe more accepting on the front end of esports and gaming? Like, have you seen that piece in general? Because that's Kristen, Mike, and I talk about this all the time. A lot of what we do is educate people on what esports is and is not, and help them kind of clarify, especially when it comes to elimination type games or shooter type games. Do you find, though, within military communities, people are more just initially accepting of kind of esports and gaming, or is there still that education piece that you have to do?
I think that's a great question. I think that they are. I really, so part of our our game offerings include M-rated games, and our outgoing principal last year, I wasn't expecting her to be so accepting of that. And she required us to do a parent permission form. And so I had an opt-out on that parent permission form. And I've never had a parent opt out. And so a lot of the kids will come back and they'll tell me, like, oh yeah, I play Call of Duty with my dad all the time. And so as far as like the shooters and some of maybe the titles, the M-rated games that tend to kind of brush up against more of the, should we be allowing this in school, and all of those, the violence conversations and all those things, I really haven't gotten any pushback from that. And then whenever we get parents that come in, I think they're just very excited about the quality of equipment that we have. And then that kind of starts that conversation of, oh, okay, you guys, oh wow, you guys play Rainbow Six. And another thing too, just kind of as I'm thinking about that, a lot of the programs that are non-military in our face-to-face group, they run their stuff through ROTC. And so that's a big connecting piece for them, with like Rainbow Six and Call of Duty. And it seems like that's an area where, especially with maybe more hesitant admin, they're like, well, that's your thing, right? And we have an air rifle range on post, and that's part of ROTC training. And so that's a great question, Trevor. Like, I never really thought of it that way before, but it just seems like that's a very natural next step for them. And it's just a way of, it's just infused in part of their culture as a community.
Yeah. And I said, it's just curious to me because and as a non-gamer, a lot of what I try to do is help people see the benefits and the value of being a part of an esports community, and helping educate folks. But it's definitely, you run into some folks that are like, oh yeah, we're all in, no big deal. And others like, it's going to take a lot of convincing. I don't know if we want to even look at any more screens, or like, let's talk through this. Let's understand that. And so I'm always kind of curious when it comes to communities, why some communities are more accepting than others. And that's with a lot of things. I mean, you could expand that to a lot of things in life, but it's just always curious to me when you kind of see patterns and trends in some communities, they're more open than others. So cool. Appreciate hearing that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about, you mentioned the games that you play in the technology piece, and we do have a lot of educators who ask about, like, what technology do I need, and what, firewalls need to be opened, and how do the kids get the games? And I mean, so I'm curious about how there's games that cost money. Do you play games that cost money, and how do you handle, do the students purchase the game, or do you purchase the game and then the kids have access to the account, or what's your strategy on that? Because we did it when I was doing it, we did it both ways. We kind of just had a variety of options, but I'm always curious to see how other people who have been doing this for a while handle it, so that we can use that information for our watchers and for our sales team and everything. So
no, that's a great question as well. For us, we just had a very supportive admin team, and so I really tried to build up a lot of trust with their vision for what security looks like. The firewall aspect of it, giving admin access to certain devices and things like that. And our IT director, Adam, is just he's a wizard with that kind of stuff. And so he has been very instrumental with getting systems set up to where we run our lab PCs as teacher stations. Mm-hmm. And then basically I just give them the list of software that needs to be pushed out. You've got the Epic Game Store launcher, you've got Steam, you've got Riot Games and all those things. And then we built those out specifically and very bare bones to where the level of access really just stops at whatever it is that we have downloaded for those computers. As far as the games go, we did, when I built out my original budget for our STEM grant, I did have a line item in that budget for the game licensing. And Call of Duty was definitely kind of one where they went, "Ooh, that's pretty expensive per game license there. And how many of these do you need?" But I told them that the equity piece is that, a lot of times the kids do not have access to the high performing gaming PCs, at least, or even consoles at home. And so, the Xboxes and Switches are, I think as a parent, that's an easy buy, because they just walk up to Target and they say, my kid wants the Xbox, whatever. And they hand it to them and they go, cool. And then they wrap it up and then the kid knows what to do with it. But for the PCs, I think it's what is the old say? It's the frames wins games or something like that. Yep. When we're on the competitive side, we want to try to get those optimized and as high performing as possible. So on the flip side of that question, though, is that there's so many games that are free to play. Mm-hmm. And that's been a huge blessing for us in our program, because like for Overwatch example, they just, they just went free to play. They took a game that was traditionally $60 a license, and they made it accessible to everybody, with opportunities to scale up your gaming experience through the unlocks and things like that. And so, we had purchased Overwatch licenses, and we had an Overwatch team, and they were doing their thing. And then, obviously they shut down the servers, and it was kind of cool because I went to go update the computers, and you didn't even have to re-download the game. It was an update in battle.net, and then boom, you've got Overwatch 2. So Rocket League is free, Valorant is free, Overwatch 2 is free. And then of course with the Switch, so many kids do have a Switch. That's a really easy way of sourcing some of your equipment, is just getting that parental permission and getting the kids to come in and letting them use their own devices. And so it's kind of a balance, but the free to play games gave us an opportunity to purchase some beefier systems. And so if I can, I'll try to turn the screen around if you can see it. So this is our new lab.
There you go. Look at that.
That's
This is my
super cool.
This is our playground, and one of my favorite places to be. You can see it here on the side. We've got so I've got 8 Alienware M15 R6s that we use for our laptops. The intention with laptops was that we could take them to competitions, local competitions and things like that. And then on the back there, we've got 6 Alienware Aurora R11s that are running AMD 5700 XTs. The Alienware laptops are running 3070, the laptop GPUs for those. And then on the sides there, just to fill out our numbers, we have 2 of the old HTC Vive computers that we had purchased. I think they're running 1660s in them. And our outgoing tech director, we had purchased them for the school, and they just really weren't being used. And I was like, man, he's got some decent graphics cards in here. And you mind if I kind of repurpose them? So he said, absolutely, go for it. And so, having that STEM grant was definitely kind of the big piece. That's how we were able to accelerate and build out our program. And then as we had more and more kids come out, we were kind of shoved in our tech building, which is across the street. We shared that space with our professional development team. And so there were quite a few times where we had to vacate the space because of a meeting, and it just really wasn't, there wasn't a good energy in there. It was a great place to start out, and I'm very, very thankful that they let us be in there. And then this space right here it doubles as our STEM lab, which is kind of how I sold it to our administration. So during the day, the teachers can come in for extension pieces, but this classroom is actually in our media center, in our library. And so it would be a fully fitted, retrofitted classroom if it was tied to an actual course. And so this is also where my office is as well. So a very long answer to a very well framed question about the access piece. And I know that HSEL had done their big initiative, their contest for the full labs, and that generated a lot of excitement for the kids. There's a lot of donors out there, a lot of ability for new and upcoming programs to source their equipment. And then, with the kids too, I always wanted them to have a place where they could play. And so they can get on and they can play on the school accounts if they want. Most of the kids log in with their own stuff. And that's perfectly acceptable for our technology department, our IT. And they just have a blast with it. And it's kind of funny too, because the kids, they look at the school accounts and they're like, it's kind of like playing a game again for the first time. And it never fails. And I'm kind of the same way as a gamer myself. I always play better at my friend's place on his console for whatever reason. And then they're like, man, I just unlocked that on the school account. I was working on that for 6 months. How did that even happen? And so they start to kind of own the school accounts. And so we've got a couple of Rocket League accounts that are up in platinum now because the kids they've just worked on them. And so they love coming in and kind of tinkering with that. And so it kind of adds this different element to, to play the play styles for them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I love that you talked about the 2 computers that were kind of not being used, because we talk about that a lot with, find those machines that are just used once or twice a day that you can utilize and repurpose. And I love that you were able to do that, because that's, I know we had a lot of computers, in computer labs that were not used as often as they could have been, and they had all the equipment run these games on. And I love that you were able to repurpose those and use them for your lab. And I hope other educators kind of take that to heart and look around in their district for that equipment, because it, in many cases, it does exist. They just don't realize what they need. I think when people hear about esports and gaming, it's got to be this like $5,000 liquid cooled, amazing rig that can only run these games. And it really isn't. It isn't like that. But and again, it's just an education piece on our part. But I appreciate you for sharing that. So,
Well,
oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, what you're also doing is creating ownership for the kids there, Wacey. I mean, that's their place, and they know that, and they can feel proud of that, and that's only going to cause a program to grow. And that's what you want kids, is to feel like it's their thing. It's kind of like I can remember like weight rooms in high school for football and whatnot. Like,
Yep.
This is my place. This is our home, and kids find the same thing for the gaming labs, but you got to give them that place. And I'd put posters up and kind of customize it, make it feel like their own space. So very cool.
So tell us really quick too, how did you get to this part of your life and your career? Like, you didn't start out making this happen. And obviously you said you're a gamer, and, you're named after a bull rider. So you got all this different kind of background. So kind of take us through your career a little bit and how you got to this place.
Sure. So I actually started out as an English teacher. I was a secondary English teacher for 8 years. And I've kind of always gravitated towards like GT and the AP side of things. I thought for a long time that I was going to be, an English professor or something like that. I kind of toyed with getting my master's in literature, and just really, really had a chance at my second school district. So I was at Pflugerville ISD for 5 years up in Austin area, which is actually my home district. That's where I graduated from. And I moved out to Leander ISD, and they had a pilot program for one-to-one laptops with their high school. And so that just changed the game. And right around that time, Google was starting to really take root with Google Classroom and all their collaborative tools. And I just took it and ran with it. And running an English class with the type of collaborative tools that Google provides, it changed my whole perspective. Yes, totally mind blowing. Yeah, and I took all that wonderful curriculum I had created from scratch in those first 5 years, and I threw it out the window. And I probably made about 5 copies in the 3 years that I was there. We went completely digital, just totally spoke to my tech geek background, and just kind of realized like, I need to be doing more. I want to do more. And so went back to school for my master's, and went to UNT for my master's in learning technology. And kind of my emphasis was on instructional systems design, and basically with an intention of going into digital learning, instructional technology specialist, that kind of thing. And got my shot at Hayes CISD. And this would be in like, I think 2018, 2019 school year. And got put as a district digital learning coach, and I was in charge of 7 campuses, 5 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school, and just took it and ran with it, and just really, really started to get into the app space and all the learning apps that we have, Flipgrid, Edpuzzle, that kind of thing, the Chromebooks, that aspect of it. And then my boss at the time said, hey, I'm going to be taking a new position. I want to go kind of back into the digital learning sphere, and they have an opening at Fort Sam for a secondary coach. Would you be interested? And because we were living in Leander at the time and I was working in Kyle, it was 50 miles one way. And so I had this insane commute through the heart of downtown Austin, and I was spending like 4 hours in the vehicle, in the car round trip. And we just had a baby. And so and I was finishing up with my last semester of grad school, and I was just getting really close to being burnt out just on the general schedule aspect of it. Yeah. And we had kind of thought about moving down into that area, and I came home, and after my spring evaluation, I told my wife, I was like, I thought about moving, how would you like to just move a little bit further down the road and go to San Antonio? And so, we talked about it and kind of got a bigger picture of the school. And our boss, my boss at the time, Dr. Rios, kind of called me and gave me the sales pitch, if you will. And he's like, you got to get down here. These kids are just unreal. Like it's going to change your whole thing. And so I said yes, and came down here and got a whole half a semester, and then COVID hit. And so we had to have a pivot, you know, as everybody did. And so that I'm not a big complainer. And so everything that's happened kind of through all that is just adding to my toolbox. And then kind of through this STEM grant that we reinfused back into the campus coming out of COVID. That's where one of our students are now club president. He's a senior this year. I'm going to make sure that he doesn't leave, though, because he can't leave. Kevin, if you're listening,
we're going to hold you back.
We're 13th, 14th grade. Yeah, I'll get you through college. Don't worry about that. But he had made his pitch to our principal in the fall of 2019, and then he had to wait a whole year to get esports going. And so we were able to tie it to that STEM grant, and then the rest is history. And so we had a big turnover at Fort Sam this past year. A lot of people retiring, a lot of people that kind of built the culture up and made things great. And through that transition, I decided to, you know, kind of work on building roots at the campus a little bit more. And they said, yeah, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go to campus now, and you're going to source from there. And so I said, that's fine with me. It's less walking. It's easier to connect with the kids. And I said, but I need an office. And so there's that room in the library. You think I might be able to turn that into a STEM lab? We got something in elementary school. It'd be nice to have some equity over here at the high school. And our incoming principal, he said, hey, okay, that sounds great. And here we are. So that's kind of my educational testimony, if you will. I'm very, very blessed just to think about, you know, because this is year 13 for me. And you know, I've had a lot of fun in our great profession, and a lot of great kids along the way. And digital learning is definitely where I want to stay. And I'm very thankful to have a position like this. There's not a lot of school districts that are able to provide this type of support, even at a small school district like ours. So I have a lot of passion for what I do.
Yeah, you can tell. It's pretty amazing.
So kind of with that, where do you see things headed for you? Like, if you could look ahead and say by year 15, 16, 17, here's where I see our esports program. Here's the direction of kind of our communities that are developing. Where do you see things headed?
That is a fantastic question. I was actually just talking about that with our tech director the other day. So we have a very healthy scene now. The SAMSAT, which is the San Antonio Museum of Science and Technology I mentioned earlier, they have a crew over there that is actually pulling a lot of their volunteers from the college teams. And almost every college that's represented in the San Antonio area now has an esports program in some degree, form, or fashion. And so what that's doing is it's just exposing our kids to a lot of different approaches to secondary or post-secondary education that they had not thought of before. Yeah. And so, you know, I have our daughter here. She's at the elementary school. And so as long as she's here, I'm here, and she's having a blast. And so, you know, as far as our program, you know, we're on the kind of on the founding partner list for this organization, Region 20 Premier League, and it's just exploding. And Josh, who runs that program, this is a side gig for him, and he was actually in emergency management for the city, and he's working, you know, crazy hours there, and then working crazy hours, you know, through this, and he's just spoiling the kids. And so, you know, we went from having 6 teams last spring, and we did 2 face-to-face tournaments with all of their friendlies and competition virtually, and that was a little bit of a headache because I tell the kids it's all beta testing, right? We're just beta testing the system. We're giving them feedback. Yeah. And so they took all that feedback, and now that we've got the TechPort Arena, and if you guys are able to do some research on that, it's basically a convention center that is in 3 parts. The main area, that is where they have their boxing matches, their concerts, that kind of thing. And it seats, I think it's about 4,500, 5,000 people. They've brought a couple of professional esports teams through. That's one section. Then they have the LAN gaming center, which is the public facing area, and it's just a LAN center. You can go 7 days a week, rent some computer time there. Got liquid cooled. They've got the $5,000 crazy build out computers, and you just go in there and you're just like drooling because it's awesome. And then the third part is where the museum is actually moved to. So they were in an older building across the street. Now they moved into that section, and that's open to the public. And that's where they have like all of their technology artifacts and stuff like that. And so all of our tournaments are there. They are there every Saturday. And so that is now the intersecting piece of almost every single high school program in the city, excuse me. And they'll come in. The kids are starting to know each other now. They're starting to know their gamer tags. They're starting to kind of have a little bit of a following, especially as they start to do well. And so that is where we want to be. And that's where I think you're going to see the most growth. And I think the main goal of that program is to be what Arlington has with their big arena, and to really have that as being the premier draw to San Antonio as far as tech and innovation. So 5 to 7 years, I could see that being probably over 1,000 kids, multiple weekends, multiple game titles. Right now we do Smash, Rocket League, and Valorant, and they added Valorant this year, and they've already got 16 teams. So it's a pretty big group. We've got about 85 Smash kids that come out and play every Saturday. So it's been very good, very healthy. And, we do have HSEL to thank for that, because, without that virtual platform during COVID, we don't have any competitive space. There was no local scene. There was nothing. And so for the kids to get in there and go, we just played a team from New York and we won. And that was amazing. It just kind of generated that excitement. Yeah. And as I found more places to plug us in, the kids were just like, yes, more. We want more. We want more. We want more. So that's a huge benefit to be able to play on both those platforms.
Oh, I love that so much. Awesome. Well, you've just really led such a great esports initiative there. And so just really enjoyed having you come on today. And we usually do something a little fun where we are going to do a little fun question. But before I do that, is there anything that you would want to add for our listeners that maybe we didn't cover that you'd like to share with everybody?
I would say let the kids do it. There's a lot of things that swirl around our esports program. And to be honest with you, I wish I had a clone of myself, or at the very least an assistant or something like that, just because, once it gets going and that engine gets going and the kids get excited about it, they want to add more and more and more and more and more. And that takes time. And I have really tried to sequester our program just to the after school piece. But we're able to support and prop up all of the communities, because that's what we want to do. Right. And so when you let the kids do it, taking over the structure, leading the meetings, those kind of things, taking ownership of the hardware, they're probably a little bit more strict with each other than I am. And I'm pretty insanely detail oriented about don't touch the monitor screens, clean up after yourself. We're going to have everything arranged. They take that and they run with it. And so if you have a vision for that, build your army through the kids, and they know that this is not going away. They want to preserve that. The emphasis on academics can be there. The emphasis on being leaders in the classroom is there. And so when you set those expectations as high as they can go for the kids, they're going to take that and they're going to hold themselves accountable, and it becomes this big, beautiful community effort. And so when you let the kids do it, that's where the rubber meets the road. And I think you're going to find that they're going to take it in places that you never even imagined. So they're much more imaginative and creative than I am. So that's I owe a lot of our stuff to them for sure. So
I love that. Build your army through the kids. That is like my favorite statement I think I've heard in a long time. So, okay, we're going to have you pick a number through 1 through 10, and that's going to decide our question of the day. That's just a little fun question to wrap us up. 1 through 10.
Okay. Let's say 5.
5. Okay, this is a good one. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What do you got? What do you got?
What was the last TV show you binge watched?
Oh, great question. I would say Ted Lasso.
Oh, such a good one.
So great. And I only made it through season 1 because I really don't get a chance to watch as much TV as I want. But we did that over, I guess it was a couple weekends ago. We made it to Ted Lasso. And Wow, you're talking about a model for an esports coach there. That guy had some crazy good one-liners,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Jason Sudeikis went to my high school.
Did he really?
Yeah. Yeah.
He just seems like such a fun guy. Like, I feel like if you ever ran into him at like Target or something and
Yeah.
just walked up to him, he would like totally have a conversation with you and, you know,
Yeah.
maybe even ask for your phone number and be best friends with you. So
Yeah,
Jason, if you
I
listen
think-
to this, my note.
Right. I think
You're
you're
my number.
right. Yeah. He was actually a student when I was a teacher at Shawnee Mission West. So
That's
little
awesome.
shout out there. Yeah. So I didn't know him. I actually knew of his sister, Kristen Sudeikis, who was a dancer at another school, but I coached dance. So, and she,
awesome.
I think she dances in New York now, but yeah, great show. You got to keep watching it.
Yeah.
So, all right, Trevor,
Gotta get to
Mike.
it.
I'll go. I'm still working through Better Call Saul.
Better Call
the
Saul, that's a good
follow-up
one.
sequel to I'm forgetting the name of it.
Breaking
now.
Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad,
Bad.
I am absolutely loving it. Better Call Saul. It's incredible. Awesome.
is
awesome.
good.
Series. Very
I've
good.
heard really good things about that one.
Excellent. Maybe better than Breaking Bad.
Ooh.
Ooh.
That is false. That is
I think
true.
about it.
Not even. I've watched them both all the way through, both multiple times.
I don't know.
But
Okay,
I
Mike.
guess it's a matter of opinion. Okay, well, this is a family show, but I do have to be honest. So it was Dahmer. I watched the series.
Oh,
Dahmer.
Is that good? Is it worth watching?
I had to fast forward some parts. It was bad.
It's
but
it's good. It's well done. We have to watch it in increments. I can't really binge it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
But
there was no way my wife could watch it. She would have been up all night every night for like a week. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not a kid-friendly show.
no,
Oh,
no,
no.
definitely don't want your kids to watch that. Not even a little bit.
That is not a fairy tale type of
No,
show.
no. So unfortunately,
well-
that was mine.
We went back and we went kind of back in time because we'd never watched this show, and we are currently binging Mad Men.
Awesome.
So, yeah, my husband and I had never watched it, and we are now ready to start season 6, and we're just like hooked into it. I just love it so much. So that's been our recent guilty pleasure, and so fun to go back and watch some shows that maybe we didn't catch. But so as we kind of wind this up, Wacey, where can people get in touch with you? I know that you're very active on Twitter. I know you even do you have a podcast? Is that right? Did you start a new podcast?
Yeah, we are trying.
Well, where can people who'd like to maybe get in touch with you and connect with you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is at Mr. Tobler's Tech. You guys are welcome to DM me there. You'll see a lot of things retweeted from our RGC account. Our program account is at RGC_esports. And then, always drop me a line on email. It's wtobler@fshisd.net. And then we are trying to start a podcast. So one of my very, very good friends, Eric, that I met in Hayes, he was one of our other coaches. We're trying to start an educational podcast in the digital learning space. We're trying to play off the baseball theme. So it's the DL Diamond, the Digital Learning Diamond. And we have a Twitter handle there at DL Diamond. And we're actually supposed to kind of working on our second episode, and that's supposed to drop within the next couple of days. We got a guest spot on that one. So really trying. I'm obsessed with the podcast space. This is so cool. I'm so grateful you guys brought me on. And Kristen, you actually kind of got me started on that too with the one that you were doing before. And this is just it's a cool medium to really re-engage a lot of the thoughts behind, our different parts of our profession. So it's been really good.
I agree. Well, we're so glad to have you on. You can reach me at Kristen Esports on Twitter and LinkedIn. Trevor, where can we reach you again?
Twitter on Goertzen_edu. And if you just search Trevor Goertzen on LinkedIn, you'll find me there.
And I am at Russ the Teach on Twitter and just Michael Russell on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Wacey. I think people are really going to get to learn from you. And I know I can't wait to connect with you again. I'm hoping you're going to be at TCEA and we'll be able to connect there. But just have a great rest of your semester and keep doing all the great things that you're doing there. So thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me on. Y'all have a blessed Friday. Y'all are awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Take care,
Wacey. It was
Wacey.
nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Nice to meet y'all. Bye.
Bye.